And welcome back for part 3. This is Chris, MTGO's Rex Dart, and now we are taking a look at Slug 360's Zombie Bombardment deck. And this is a little different than I'd seen this built before. And Slug has sent in some replays, which we're going to take a look at in part 4, which we'll wrap up for the week. But I wanted to go ahead and take a look at lay the deck out so we can see what's going on here now. Goblin Bombardment has been stapled onto a zombie shell with some disruption in regular Legacy and made some waves in 2012, and I had a few successful high-profile finishes. But that deck was using things like Cabal Therapy, and again, much more disruption than is being used here, and was red, white, black instead of the green here. So Goblin Bombardment still always combos quite well with Gravecrawler, Geralf's Messenger, and some other zombies. So definitely a solid inclusion in any event. But you can just keep sacrificing the Gravecrawler, bring it back, allows you to get that repeatable removal. So not only does the deck have the resiliency that we know from standard zombies, but it has that extra bit of reach in order to finish off an opponent, or in a grindy match allows you to grind out a win by picking off your opponent's creatures that way. Now, part of this is a pretty conventional shell of Golgari standard zombies, really. Diregraph, Gravecrawler, Geralf's Messenger, Lotleth Troll, all being included here. And Putrid Leech gives you a way. You have a very low curve here. You can just get aggro and not get fancy if you want to with this deck. But again, if you want to go grindy, you have those options. You also have Deathrite Shaman to help you close out a game. And I will note about Deathrite Shaman and some of the other cards included here that one of the best things about the Zombie Tribe is you have a lot of really good options to play main deck worthy creatures. Since you don't have a sideboard in Tribal Wars, they all have to be, but you have a lot of main deck worthy creatures that don't look embarrassing, that also manage to shut down opposing graveyard strategies if you're concerned about those. Withered Wretch being one of the best in that regard. Hate Bears against graveyards that's been printed. You also have Grave Scrabbler, which if you can kind of run interference with opponents' graveyard. If they're on some sort of a reanimator plan, dread return, something like that, you can discard the Grave Crabbler at instant speed to the Lotleth Troll, for instance, and use its enter the battlefield ability to bounce the dread return target back into the opposing player's hand from his graveyard. So you have some tricks you can do there. Liliana the Veil has plenty of things to discard for value here. Grave Crawlers, extra copies of Bombardment, which are otherwise redundant, which kind of make it stink to have to run multiples, but Lily can pitch those and get you some value out of that. Imperial Recruiter allows him to tutor up any creature in the deck apart from the Geralf's Messenger. Now, as to what he would want to tutor up, it's probably going to depend on where he's at, but he can tutor up the Deathrite Shamans, for instance. He could use it to tutor up the Carrion Feeder. Carrion Feeder combos very well with Gravecrawler. Just you can put as many counters on it as you have black mana. He could tutor up the Crypt Champion if he needs to return something, the Disciple of Bolas if he needs to gain some life, draw some cards. You could tutor up the Grave Scrabbler. So again, he's got a lot of options. I don't know, it's flexible, and I'll give it that, but I'm not sure if that's the way I would have gone here. But he obviously thinks that the ability to do that is important, and we'll see how it plays out in the replays. The mana base is pretty straightforward. 4 Badlands, 4 Bayous. If you're playing a deck with Geralf's Messenger, you want to be able to have every land in your deck produce black. So while it does occasionally suck that you don't have... I've played Jund Zombie Aggro before, and I didn't have the recruiter thing going on here, whatever. But it was largely similar to this, and it occasionally is very inconvenient to not have a taiga to pull up if you only have a couple of lands and you know you're going to have to play a putrid leech, but you also want to play some red. So I think he downplayed the red a little bit. My deck had like chain lightnings and lightning bolts and a lot more sly look to it. Whereas, because I knew I would need that red, and if you don't need that red, then you can afford to, or you can afford to wait on it. Then going with all black producing lands is the smoothest way to make sure you were able to play things like these messengers on time. So let's take a look at the replays and see how he does.